Um, Welcome to the start of second half of season PD. It has been a doozy of a 2020 and a doozy of a past 24 hours. So we appreciate you showing up and being here to be present for this community and collective learning and thinking about coaching your teams and launching the start of the second half of this really unprecedented season. So we're going to open, just if you can put in the chat your name, your school that you coach at, number of years that you've been coaching debate, and one word to describe how you are showing up today. Although I think the snowman images probably encapsulated that better. So if you can put that just in one chat, your name and so forth, name, comma, school, etc. And we'd also invite you, if you can just change your names if they don't have that yet, just you can put your name, parentheses, school, put gender pronouns if you choose as well, just so that people who don't all know each other can get a sense through that, because we do have middle and high school coaches here in the virtual room for the first time probably since the summer. So it's really great to see all of you together. My name is Marisa Sweskin. I work at the Boston Debate League alongside a great team that will introduce themselves as well. The other thing we want you to put, and you can actually just private message this to either myself or to Luce, or you can put it in the chat to everyone, is whether you'd like a Grubhub or Uber Eats card. Dinner is on the BDL. If we were gathering in person, we'd be having dinner together, but instead we hope either tonight or a different night, you can enjoy a dinner on the BDL. So we will be sending those gift cards to you during the first hour of this PD, so you can put in the order of break if you'd like, or again for a different evening.
Marisa, to make that easy, I'm sending the Excel in the chat so everybody can just write it down in the Excel. So, because I'm gonna get lost with all the emails coming in, the chat coming in. So everybody have editing access. Just next to your name, just write down what gift card you want.
Thank you, Liz. That's right. You had mentioned that in a much more efficient method. So with that, if we move to the next slide, we'll go over the objectives and agenda for today. So we really have three purposes. One, whenever we gather, we hope that we are building community. And so we hope you experience that tonight. And then there's two big kind of content focuses. One is about strategies for debater engagement, commitment, and community in the second half of the season. And Coach Lorenis Nova of BINCA is going to lead that, along with a BINCA current debater and BINCA alum who will introduce themselves shortly. And then after a short break, we will dig into the new case. We'll learn about the new case with Mosey Burke, who's a BDL alum, currently in college, and also the author of the second BDL case on voting rights. And then we'll also share with you and do a little taste of a collection of lessons that you can use with your debaters, and we'll give you a chance to reflect on how you might start to introduce this case with your debaters and things that you would do to support them in digging into it. So if we go to the next slide, it just shows the agenda. So we are in the welcome, and we'll be moving right into community building and engagement and commitment in just a moment. We'll take a break at 4:55 and then dive into the new case and close out by 6. So please feel free to put in the chat if you have any questions about our agenda. But with that, I will pass it on to coach of Boston International Newcomers Academy, Lorenis Nova.
Thank you so much, Marisa. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lorenis Nova, and I am happy to be here with you all today. This is going to be a great afternoon. I look forward to listening to your comments, to reading your questions and comments in the chat. So please, let's stay engaged, as this is all about engagement. So I'm happy to just see your lovely faces and read your comments in the chat. Let's take a quick second to review this slide, because we're going to go into breakout rooms in a short while, maybe about 2 minutes. We are going to have a very quick 7-minute icebreaker in which you and your little groups are going to share about your winter break. And we're going to do it differently. Instead of just asking you the question and letting you come up with the answer, I will guide you in a spin and wheel adventure. And this is how it's going to work. I'm going to show you really quickly. First of all, you're going to go into your breakout rooms. When you're there, there will be one of the VDL staffs or myself leading the session and showing you our spinning wheel. And you're going to match the color of your, the color that shows in the spinning wheel with the task. And I'm going to show you right here. This is the spinning wheel, right? And this little box shows the task that you have to answer when you get the color. It may sound confusing, but I can promise you, once you're in your room with your little group, it's going to make sense. You're going to have fun. My only request is that when you are in the little groups, you find someone that will be able to report back to the group when we come back to the main room. And what is it that you're going to report? We want to see what some coincidences or what some things that you share in common with someone in your group. What are they? They look like. What is it that you said that we can all share and know about this really strange and weird holiday season? So as I say that, I see that there are 2 comments in the chat and we have a link to the spreadsheet. So please remember to go back, make your edits so you can get your gift card. And I know that Marisa is going to move us into our breakout rooms pretty quickly. I know that you're going to have a co-host in each one of the groups and they will lead you through this icebreaker. I truly hope that you have fun and that you learn a lot so that you can do this with your debaters at practice one of these days. I promise you it's really good. I did it with my debaters a few days ago. We had so much fun. And this is the #1 lesson of today's engagement session. You learn debate by having fun. You learn debate by doing this kind of activities. So Marisa, whenever we're ready, I think we're good to go.
We are ready for 8 minutes and you will have the following leaders. Group 1, Runner, Group 2, Marisa, Group 2, Lorenis, and in Group 4. And Roger, I assigned it to everyone so as well. So
sounds good.
So we're going for 7 minutes and 1 minute for Novice. So here we go if there are no questions for Lorenis.
Okay, thank you so much. Just make sure that you have the PowerPoint open when you go into your breakout room, host.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
It's nice to see everyone. Happy late New Year. But yeah, so we're gonna get started. I know we're being timed, so I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna share what we did over the break, but also, hold on. 2 seconds. All right, pulling
And
up.
am I supposed to have the PowerPoint open, or was she
No,
saying that for you?
I'm supposed to. I'm just
Okay.
opening the wheel right now.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if I missed a link. Thanks.
No worries. All right, so here's the wheel. So this is how it's going to work. So depending on so I'm going to be spinning this wheel, and depending on what you get, you'll be answering the question that's associated with the color. So if you land on blue, you're going to be sharing with the group something that you did. If you land on green, you're going to be sharing something that you ate, and so on and so on. So I'm going to keep it on the wheel. I'm just going to go straight down my list. I'll start with Helen. I'm going to spin.
Black.
We got black. Black is something different this year.
Something different was that I did like nothing on Christmas. Didn't see anybody except my husband and don't think I got out of my pajamas. So that was different for me. Usually I see family.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate. Yeah, with everything going this year. So definitely feel that. All right, going straight down, Erica. We'll spin one more time.
Oh, and as an add-on, if people want to throw in the chat, if what people share, if that applies to you, put that in the chat as well. So if you have the same answer someone else gives, put that in the chat.
Thanks, Roger. So we got red. Red is something you didn't do.
I did not go skiing. I wanted to go skiing. I did not go skiing.
What do you usually go?
I have not been skiing maybe 10 years, so there isn't a usual place these days.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, actually, I did that one time as well, but it's probably around a decade now. That's what I was asking, because it's I had a lot of fun, but I never went back. So
at this point, I would go to a pretty small mountain.
And just, I see. All right, thank you for sharing. Going straight down, Kelly.
Ready.
You have yellow. Yellow is something special.
Oh, something really special. Both my parents got their first dose of the vaccine, and I'm so jealous.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. Like mixed emotions. It's like, yeah.
I know, like, oh, I wish that were me.
Yeah. I am definitely in the same boat. Yeah, I definitely wish they were more widely available, like with the mask and things I just want to kind of go back to doing. Like, it just makes it, I think, I would still probably wear a mask, but just make it a lot easier to just navigate the world. All right, thank you for sharing. We're gonna go to Bennett. Ben. Here we go.
So formal, Ben.
I know, right? We got a yellow, another yellow. Ben, share with us something special.
Something special. I got something accepted to be published.
Ooh.
So that was special.
Congrats.
I was gonna say I'll be late, but I was like, I have my phone, but I also wasn't expected to talk, so I'm sorry about the noise.
No, you're doing great.
No worries. What did you submit, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a philosophy paper.
Nice.
So
Okay.
it's on like philosophy and stuff. It's real boring.
I have more questions. Actually, I was a philosophy major in college, actually, but we'll keep this going. We'll connect. All right. Who else is on here? Kelsey. We're gonna spin. All right. Oh wow. Yellow is the flavor of the day. I think it's definitely the color. We have another yellow. Something special.
I think maybe my obvious one is they had a kid. She's special.
Yeah, you can't really beat that.
I was gonna say I'm trying to think of something else because all I do is just like sit here with her on me, and I was like, what is something new? But like literally, I haven't done anything else, so it's just. But yeah, she's special. She's also kind of cranky.
Anyone else have a kid or get to visit with young kids at all recently?
Yeah, we all been just hunkering down.
Like, it was like no one's come to visit. Like we've done door visits, so like people have come outside and waited outside our glass door, and we just like, wave. But I'm like, sorry, I don't want anyone around.
Or Zoom visits, and you just
Zoom visits.
Yeah, that's the thing now.
Yep.
All right, and I think this may be last but not least, Lorenis. We're gonna spin, and we have. If it's yellow, I'm gonna have to do it again. This is incredible. All right, you can do that, or I can spin it again. You decide.
Let's spin it again. Let's do some variety.
Like, what are the odds? Like, imagine if it's yellow again. Okay. All right. We have a white, which is something you wish you had a chance to do.
Oh, I think this one's going to be easy for me, but my family is originally from Michigan, so I didn't get a chance to see my family for the holidays, and so that's something that I wish I had a chance to do, but I Zoomed with them to celebrate the holidays. But I wish.
Yeah, Thank you for sharing. That definitely applies to me. I'm not putting that in the chat, but yeah, just being able to see other people, I think was not really a thing. And actually, yeah, the world's upside down. So I think we all can probably relate to that.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is our time actually. We're gonna go back. Oh, actually, we did not do something, which is so we point out what people said to choose someone. But I think I remember enough of them. But yeah, so we're gonna go back to the main room to join the rest of the team. I thank you everyone for participating.
Thanks.
Thanks, all.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And Shirley, so for you, let's see if you get the same color. Oh, you go white. Let's see. So something you wish you had a chance to do.
Well, spend time with family. I wasn't able to do that this Christmas with all family. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. That definitely resonates, I think, with a lot of people, including myself. And so I think everybody
We're
just came back. They came back at Lorenis. We were just doing one in the main room as well. So, but I pass it back to you.
excellent. Thank you so much. My group and I were having so much fun. I actually have to still get through 1, 2, 3 more people, but I'm so good that you guys got a chance to play this game and just, talk a little bit about what winter break looked like and how we're here today talking about debate. So let me go back to sharing my screen one more time. I know that you're excited, just like me, to learn about engagement. So I really want to share with you today a couple of strategies and ideas I personally consider really important when it comes to talking about engagement. And I think it's all about connections. So I really highly encourage you to use the chat to ask questions, to write your comments, because when we talk about connections, I can see so many people here today on this call that I've met over the past 6 years, and I cannot imagine myself being here today if it wasn't for them. Like, debate, it's all about connections. It's about the community. It's about the family. And so that's the number one thing I want to talk to you about. There are 3 main ideas that we are going to cover. One is community. The next one is engagement. And the third and last one is commitment. But in order to begin talking about connections, talking about building stronger teams, we really need to understand that every team is different and that we all have something in common. That one thing that we have in common is debate, how much we love argumentation, how much we love learning and just using our voices, to make our opinions count. And so when we're talking about connections, I think that in this particular sense of community, I've seen my own school and in my experience that students are really looking to build relationships. They are looking to have friends. They don't only come to the debate team because they want to get trophies or they want to go to tournaments and win rounds. They are just looking for that place where they can feel like home. They are looking for this particular group or club in which they can be themselves. They can be the best version of who they are without getting judged or seen as if they were different. And because this is nitty, I want to encourage you to follow the following steps so that you can promote community on your teams. Whatever you are, whether you're small or big, always celebrate your accomplishments. And by accomplishments, I mean, even though your debater was able to get through the entire 1AC in less than 8 minutes, that's a huge deal. Debaters don't even know sometimes that they have the power to understand the cards, to read through the cards, and to get through the entire information, even in less than 8 minutes. I always want to recommend that you foster a sense of belonging amongst your debaters, that you provide opportunities for them to get to know each other, and that you intentionally dedicate practice time to build community. How do you do that? By promoting engagement, because every debater is unique, but they will be engaged when they feel part of something bigger. This is not just about the tournament. Again, this is about being part of a larger community. So I highly encourage you to provide a space for your debaters to share how they feel good in practice. I always have this kind of icebreakers and games in the beginning of my practice because I think that students are encouraged to say more when they are playing, when they're having fun. I encourage you to also motivate your debaters to stay in touch with you, whether they have your Google Voice number, your email, your personal number, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Just make sure that there's a way for you to be in communication with your students, not the day of practice, the day before a tournament, or the day of the tournament, as much as you can. That's how you build community and you promote engagement. And by that, I mean you get involved and you learn what's going on with their lives. Not only are they your debaters, they are also students. And sometimes they need a little bit of encouragement to make sure that they are doing well in classes, to, that they are even coming to school. And so that leads me to commitment. Please bear with me. I know I'm going really fast, but I have to make sure I get through this so that we can move to the next activity in our little groups. Commitment. Every school is special. And I say this to myself every single day. I'm lucky to work at a place that I consider my home, my own home. And the people that I work with are amazing. But your school is unique, and it's also special, and it's the best. And you need to have this love for your school. If you're a debate coach and you're like me, you're probably thinking, well, there's some people that I might not be really interested in having a relationship with at my school. But that doesn't really matter. What really matters is that you make sure that your debaters know the team is visible. Everyone in your school knows that there is a debate team. If you have your debate gear, put it on. Every single Friday at BINCA, we have a debate day. Our students wear their debate gear. We do as well. I have bulletin boards all over the place. And now in this virtual world, I make sure that in every single meeting, in every single staff gathering, there's something about debate that it's been either said, recognized, or, talked about, because it has to be visible. You need to talk to your admin. You cannot be afraid to talk to your headmaster. Share your news about debate with other staff and teachers, and have others recognize and acknowledge what your debaters are doing. The work that they do is amazing, but that's part of community, engagement, and also commitment. That's how your debaters are going to start making the right decisions, and that's how they will have their own seat at the table, which is what we want. That's how we reach commitment. So, I know I said a lot, but I'm hoping that this little circle right here can be more concise and it can explain to you. We have the debaters right in the center. You might be the community stage, the engagement stage, or the commitment stage right now. And you might have been in engagement and then now moving back to community because you feel like your students are disengaged and no longer being part of the team. Or you might have a bunch of debaters who are super committed, but then you have another group that is just all over the place. What I really want you to see, open your eyes and look and see that this is a circle. It goes on, it never ends. Anytime there's a new student on your team, anytime someone is struggling, anytime someone is falling behind, you need to rely on each other to find support and to be able to move through this cycle, and to make sure that your debaters are finding the way in which they can stay connected, number one, in a community, engaged, and that will lead them to be committed debaters who attend practices, go to tournaments, and always, always, always talk about debate. And so we're going to go into a mini breakout rooms again, the same groups. In your breakout rooms, please answer the following questions. There's a part that I know Luz or Marisa are going to help me put in the chat really quickly as I explain to you the three questions. Where exactly are you right now in this cycle? Are you at the engagement, community, or commitment stage? And the second question, where exactly do you want to be by the end of the season? I mean, literally in 2 or 3 months when we're done with the last tournament. The third and last question for this session will be, where exactly do you think you will be by the end of the season? And I want to point out, there's a difference between question number 2 and question number 3. There's one thing what you want and another thing what you get. Be realistic, but optimistic. Remember that when we're talking about the debate team, we need to talk about people. We need to talk about debaters who have ideas that are unique and independent. And so let's always be honest. I'm going to look at the Padlet really quickly so I can tell you what we're doing. This is our New Year's debate Padlet. It looks a little bit different from other Padlets I've done in the past with coaches and even with my own students. Instead of adding your own bubble by clicking on this little plus sign down here, I ask that all of you in your mini groups click on the comment section, which is this one right here. And this is going to be like your own Facebook or Instagram feed. So every comment you add, it's going to show right here. Why is it like this? It is because I want you to see how you and your groups literally agree that debate is about community, it's about engagement, and it's all about commitment. That's how we build connections and that's how we create community. So the questions are right here. I know that Luz is going to bring us into our mini rooms. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly. If there's any question, please talk to the person who's leading the session in your breakout room. They have it under control. And if they, for some reason, need me, they will reach out to me. Let's go and have some fun talking about community engagement and commitment. Okay. So I'm looking at a quick message here. Instead of having 10 minutes, we're going to have 8 minutes in breakout rooms. Make sure that you have someone to take notes. Have fun. Hello, hello, welcome back. Oh, I know Zoom is amazing, and sometimes we are in so many different places at the same time, but that's the main reason why we have a Padlet, so that you guys will be able to go back to this, see the comments that you are writing. My computer has gone nonstop, just letting me know every single time you guys are writing something on the Padlet. I am so proud, and I can tell you that you guys are doing amazing. But now let's talk about strategies. If you remember, just 10 minutes ago, we were talking about community, engagement, commitment. How do we go from a bunch of paint to a beautiful picture? How do we become a solid group? How do we make sure our students are a team and not just a bunch of kids running around, not knowing what to do or why they are with us? So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas in each one of these three categories. And then we're going to go back to our mini groups to continue talking. In community, I highly encourage coaches to always have a check-in. Even if you're only meeting with your students once a week, twice a month, I have no idea how your practices run. Make sure that 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes of your time, go into a group check-in. Just see how your students are feeling, how they are doing, what's going on. They always have something to say. And it's important for us to pick their brains and find out what's happening. You can do this by asking a question, by playing a game, or having an icebreaker, a break room, and when we're in person, having mini groups as well. You can also build in time for personal reflection. And virtually, you can do this in so many ways. Honestly, a Padlet is a wonderful place for personal reflection. Maybe having a journal, maybe having a group journal in which the students can go in and tell you how things are going. It's really important, this community piece where the students feel like they belong. And how do you do that? By having debate gatherings, not just practice. Meet with your students to do other things, not just debate. It's not about the topic all the time. I always like to say that debate has a social aspect that we sometimes forget because we are too caught up in the topic. We need to remember that we need to celebrate. And that's how we have other kind of meetings that encourage community and bring our students together. I also like to say that for community, you can foster community by having practices that are reflective of your school culture and also your team culture. They may or may not be the same. Let me be honest and clear. At BINCA, we on culture, we celebrate language, and we love to, be together. But that might not be true at all other schools. So please find your own culture and show it through your practices. Play music and always, if you can, have food. I know virtually this is difficult, but I found ways to do it by just sending gift cards through the mail, even online, yeah, an email. Find ways to build community. The next one is engagement. I know it's important to have check-ins, but you need to have individual check-ins. Sometimes it's not enough to just say, hey, how you all doing today? You'd really have to go and just look at Roger, which is the only person I can see here, and say, hi, Roger, can you smile? Excellent. It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much. An individual call. It's your time to just make sure that the student feels important, special, remembered, and loved. Send individualized text messages, emails, and phone calls. I do not like when I get all staff emails. They make me feel like I'm another one of the bunch. I like when people email me and write my name on it. And that's how I do it for my students. I individually communicate with them because I really want to make sure that they feel special. Friendly reminders. Don't tell your debater that there's a tournament the day of the tournament. Always remind them a few days in advance and not do it in practice. Do this outside of practice so that they know you really care about them and it's not just the numbers that you're interested in. It's not that you want them to come because you need them to come, it's you know that it will be good for them. Play more games. I cannot say this enough. Play more games. Make it fun. Have raffles. So many ways to do this. And if you can, go debate in your classrooms or outside of your classrooms as well. We just had a debate showcase at BINCA. We invited over 60 students to just come and see the debate case, learn about what we're talking about. Have movie nights if you can, and invite debaters to talk about this kind of topics with people from the community. I actually invited one of my detective friends from the Boston Police Station a few weeks ago, and the students were super happy because they were able to talk to a real cop. Commitment. Have really specific goals as a coach, even if it's just one, but be specific. I want a blue car by the end of this year. It's super specific. What car do you want? Anything that you want, be specific, realistic, and optimistic. And I have to say this because it happened to me this year. You have to redesign your practices. Do not recycle, do not reuse. Redesign your practices. This is so different now. We just need to refresh our tech skills. We need to be open to criticism. My students about me all the time, and sometimes it hurts, but let them ask away. Let them tell you, oh, so how about we do this other thing? How about, miss, you stop talking and you let me do what I want? It's sometimes important for them to know that this is how we go from community to engagement to commitment. They will begin making the right decisions. And more importantly, welcome allies to your club. I always believe that I have Hema and other one of my students who are here today to support me. I'm going to move faster because we have to go into the other room, and you can always use this as a reference. So when we go into this next breakout, there are going to be 3 questions. We're using the same Padlet, and you know the deal now. Answer the questions. What does it mean to be part of your debate team? Honestly, what does that mean? How are you promoting engagement and commitment on your debate team? And what seems to be working when engaging students in this debate, in this virtual world? So send us into the breakout rooms, Luz, and remember to use Padlet to answer the questions. I see a bunch of comments and I really love it. I'm now gonna use the section that is green. Someone has actually started typing, and that's amazing. Just remember that we're gonna review this together. I will stop sharing my screen. I know that the magic is gonna happen shortly. We're running out of time, but we're gonna go and take a room for a few minutes. Click join and see you soon. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had enough time to look through the questions and to add your comments. And some of you were really active working in your groups, so I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to read all the comments. Now that we are back, I just want to take 1 minute of your time. I wanted to hear from 2 of my students who are here today. I invited them in particular. Marisa, is there something that we can still do?
Yeah, Lorenis, we'll take the full 5 or 6 minutes to make sure that there's time to hear from them.
Oh, I gave them each a minute, and they are debaters, so they know that I'm going to time themselves. They have just 1 minute each. Hema, you're first. And so the question for you, as it is for John, who's here as well, is how do you feel when you're part of the BINCA debate? You know, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience this past few years, knowing that right now you're no longer in high school, you're actually a freshman in college.
Hi everyone, my name is Hema, and how you know I come from, I mean, like I was part of the debating in BINCA, and from the beginning I feel like debate is a community. You feel from the very first moment that you have a family. That's how I feel the first time that I get into debate. How the teachers, the coaches like cares about you, who you are, but it's not only about like debate. Debate opens you like so many doors, like to, I don't know, it opens your mind to many bigger opportunities. So from the very beginning, the Baby Beyond BINCA community is a family. When you can count on with so many people that help you to grow as a person. You feel engaged from the very first moment that you are part of the debate. And this is not only like a specific talking about when I was part of the debating in BINCA, and also right now I have the opportunity to work for Brighton High School. And also there you see how the students feel engaged, how they feel they have a family. So someone asked me, what is debate for you? Debate is my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so happy to know you're working with Mr. Trinidad. He's lucky. John, I know you're here somewhere. John is one of my new debaters. Well, not so new anymore. He's been with me for over a year. But when he joined BINCA, I gave him a day to join the team. He had no idea that he was going to a tournament the week after. And I think he is happy about that. Right, John? Can you share a little bit about your experience at BINCA? Honey, I don't see you. I don't know where you are. There's so many people on the call.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go, John. Go ahead.
So,
Tell us a little bit about how you feel.
your story was like I stayed by accident because one friend invited me to stay, like to see how it's going, and like the miss told me like, okay, I send you into a tournament in 1 week. I say like, no way, I'm not gonna do that. But at the end, I choose to say like how Emma say, it's like it's like a familiar ambient. You can feel like how people can trust in you and share with everything, like being home. Like I'm feel grateful and happy to that I take that. I mean, how I said it, um, how I how I take that decision to stay in debate. Um, then for that I discover a new passion. It's like debate and share ideas with other people, and see other opinions that they have, and that's it.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. I wrote it in the chat, but I have to say it out loud. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, John. I love you guys. I want to share my screen really quickly, just one more time. It's almost 5 o'clock, and this is a tradition at BINCA. I always like to tell my debaters what's coming, what's happening next, and I think that that's something we as a community of coaches need to get better at. We need to remind ourselves that we do this work for our students, but we must do it for ourselves as well, right? The BDL has a bunch of events that are coming up in the month of January, and I know we're going to learn about the case. I'm super excited just to learn with you today. But just really quickly do this. We have the base scrimmages on the 20th, 21st, and the 22nd for high school, 26th, 27th, and 28th for the middle schools. The BDL is hosting their weekly practices on Thursdays, a week from today on the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. The Lexington Varsity Tournament, it's the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And then we have our awesome community events, the Criminal Justice Reform Conference, and the Let's Talk About Black Women event on the 23rd. This calendar will be available for all of you. You can feel free to modify it, use it for your practices, and it's also the BDL calendar. It's hyperlinked here for your easy access. I will stop sharing my screen right now. I want to say thank you to all of you, and I want to pass it back to Marisa so she can tell us about the break and your awesome gift cards that are on the way. Thank you. Feel free to the Padlet after this.
Awesome. Thank you. Let us give an appreciation, virtual or otherwise, for Lorenis, for Gemma, and for Jean for sharing your expertise and your experiences and insights from the BINCA team. Really appreciate that. And as always, there's so much good stuff, and we this is the BDL way. We do not give enough time for it, so I apologize for that as well. But we do want to honor time, so we're going to take a break until 5:05. Feel free to take a stretch. If you put your email in, you should have gotten an email with your Grubhub or Uber Eats card. So feel free to put in an order if you want to. And we'll see you back here at 5:05 to dig into the new case. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. That was a quick, really 4 minutes we gave you, but we promised to end by 6 so that you have your evening. And I know it's been a long time on Zoom for you today as teachers and educators. So we are moving into the second part of our PD, which is to really dig into the new case. And we're super excited to have Mosey Burke, the author of this case and a BDL alum, to be here to help us get a grounding and lead us through this. So I'm going to pass it on to Mosey.
Yeah, thank you so much. So hello, my name's Mosey. I graduated from BLA in 2017 after debating there for 6 years. I've been doing a lot of research for the BDL since I graduated. And part of what I've done is put together a chunk of this new case that we're going to be introducing. So just going to get myself set up and then talk about it a little bit. So let me screen share. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great.
And just before Mosey digs in, a little bit of Mosey's background. So he has been with the Boston Debate League for a long time, longer than me, in fact, and almost as long as Rainer. Mosey, around the time that he graduated, was interested in starting to help out by creating new cases and evidence for us, and has been doing so since he left. So this is a continued effort. But I also just want to make it clear that all of your debaters are welcome and encouraged to continue to work with the Boston Debate League, as they graduate. And we are always looking for help with writing our arguments. So please let them know that we want to keep them involved. Yeah. Go ahead, Mosey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really enjoyed working with the BDL. The research portion was one of my favorite parts of being a debater, and it's been fun to sort of indulge that part of me that really likes putting together debate arguments. You can call it peaking in high school, you can call it wanting to give back, up to you, but here I am. So I'm going to talk about the voting rights case, which is sort of the new affirmative that we're going to be introducing here. Just as a general thing, actually two general things. One, I'm on the noisiest chair I've ever encountered. So if it's squeaking a lot, I apologize. And second of all, if you have questions, just while I'm talking, feel free to put them in the chat. Roger and Rainer have both talked to me about this case a ton. They'll probably be able to answer them. But there will be a number of points where I pause to ask for questions, at which point feel free to unmute and ask them out loud. I'm more likely to see them that way. So gonna sort of jump right into it. So this case is about voting rights, and specifically the right to vote for people who are incarcerated or who have been incarcerated. So in most states, criminal convictions take away people's right to vote for some amount of time. For example, the duration of a prison sentence while someone is on probation, for life, even in a few states. And so this is generally, it's a state-by-state punishment that is included with a criminal conviction, is that the right to vote can be taken away. That's what I mean by voter disenfranchisement, is taking away the right to vote. So if I say that, that's what I mean. And given the sort of broader inequities in the criminal justice system, this consequence is also inequitably borne by people of color, specifically Black and Latino people of color. So the voter disenfranchisement of incarcerated people disproportionately impacts communities of color. We're going to jump into sort of the harms contentions of this case. And for this point, I might be going a little fast. Feel free to slow me down if anything doesn't make sense. But the first harm or advantage is called political participation. So as a result of this voter disenfranchisement because of criminal convictions, a little over 2 million Black adults are unable to vote because of a criminal conviction. Anyone want to guess what proportion or percent of the Black electorate that is? Give it a shot. It's about 1 in 13, so between 6 and 7% of the Black electorate who would otherwise be eligible to vote is unable to vote because of a criminal conviction. You know, as different state ballot measures are passed, that's going to be changing, but as of the 2018 statistic that is in the evidence in the packet, about 6 or 7% of the Black electorate is denied the right to vote because of a criminal conviction. And this sort of has an intergenerational impact because things like civic engagement and voting are shown to be learned behaviors. So basically, kids learn the importance of voting from their parents. They learn how to be civically engaged, how to engage in the political process, why voting is important, how to vote even, right, by accompanying someone to the ballot box. And so when Black adults are unable to vote, it takes away the likelihood that children will learn to vote and that those communities will sort of have a culture of civic engagement and of voting. And this weakens Black political participation in general. You know, it's sort of a cyclical impact where the removal of the right to vote from some people has this spiraling effect that really decreases the likelihood that a larger section of the electorate is going to vote in future elections, regardless of a criminal conviction. So the, sorry, jumping on. The next advantage or harm is called prison-based gerrymandering. And this is about the congressional process of districting. So generally, state, local, federal legislatures are determined by districting. You know, there are certain populations. A certain population in a district gets one representative in a different local, state, or federal legislature. And in most cases, congressional district populations include the counts of the people incarcerated within them. So if an area has 4,000 incarcerated people, then that district needs 4,000 fewer permanent residents to get the same amount of congressional representation. And this matters because prisons tend to be in rural and whiter areas, while prisoners tend to be people of color from urban areas. And so the process of districting that includes incarcerated populations quite directly takes power from the votes of people of color and gives them to rural white voters, because it means that the power of the rural and white voters is inflated because it takes fewer of them to get the same amount of legislative representation. And so this has impacts because it means that people of color are less able to defend their political interests via the political process. You know, it has impacts on the effectiveness of civic engagement. It has an effect on whether elected representatives have to listen to the needs of people of color, because based on the legislative system, their representation matters less for those congressional representatives. So what the plan does is bans voter disenfranchisement on the grounds of criminal conviction. And so what that basically means is that conviction alone cannot stop someone from voting, and it can't be the reason that someone loses the right to vote. You know, there are plenty of other instances of voter suppression, right? That's been in the news a ton, whether it's ID laws or things that basically amount to poll taxes or the lack of available polling places. But regardless of those other things, criminal conviction cannot alone take away someone's right to vote. And sort of based on the legal precedent, the votes of incarcerated people would count at their pre-incarceration place of residence. So they would count towards the population of their home district instead of the district where they're incarcerated. You might be wondering why that is, right? Like why they wouldn't count towards the population of the district where they're incarcerated. That's just basically the legal precedent that's there. They would count towards the population at their last pre-incarceration place of residence. And that's sort of generally what the case argues for, right? It says that based on the inequalities in the criminal justice system, the right to vote is inequitably distributed on a racial basis. And stopping this practice of disenfranchisement because of criminal conviction is one way to address that. I want to pause here just for any questions about the content of the case. We're going to get into more strategic elements and sort of a little bit more like maybe a little more jargony and tougher topics. But if there are any questions about sort of what the case says, what it argues, any contents of the case, I can answer those now. So feel free to unmute or put them in the chat.
Does this plan work retroactively?
Yeah, so the plan would re-enfranchise people who had the right to vote already taken away because of incarceration. Basically, the plan makes that form of disenfranchisement illegitimate. So existing state laws that stop people from voting because of a criminal conviction would be struck down in accordance with the plan.
And does it apply to any type of, I'm having a really hard time recalling the word, the payment that formerly incarcerated people have to pay after? So the issue that was going on, not in Florida, for formerly incarcerated people, would that take care of that type of, like, so they're allowed to vote, but they have to pay first? You know what I'm talking about?
The plan doesn't address that specifically. I think that if that comes up in like a cross-examination or anything, in my opinion, the plan would stop laws like that. Basically, it would say that criminal conviction can never be a grounds for voter disenfranchisement. And at least in my understanding, or how I would argue that, is that it means that since that payment would be as a result of a criminal conviction, and that payment can be grounds for disenfranchisement, the plan would strike that down as well.
Thank you.
I do think that is worth potentially bringing up in a debate. It's an interesting angle that the money element that exists doesn't just go away necessarily.
And Brian, I appreciate this message in the chat, basically that a couple thousand votes of incarcerated people could have decided a number of elections. There's actually a lot of evidence in the packet that's going to be distributed that says that things like the 2000 election could have been decided by the votes of incarcerated people, as well as a number of local and state races that had huge sort of like snowballing impacts on law.
I know this is fairly recent in terms of, you know, issues, recent being in the last like 6 months, but there's been obviously a lot of pushback on laws like this. If you, for example, incarcerated voters vote count at their pre-incarceration place of residence, a neg could always be, you know, we'll look at the irregularities in polling and voting data and the safety and security of the voting system. Is that any part of the argument as well?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big arguments on this topic for the negative in general is about political feasibility and popularity, right? The negative is going to make the argument that the unpopularity of policies that look like they're soft on crime, especially things that look like they might lead to voter fraud, are generally, you know, pretty contentious. But that's, you know, that's a debate to be had, right?
I have a question. Toby Offline here from Frederick, coach for Frederick Middle School. So in this plan, why wasn't that included? You know, what essentially is, or in functions as a poll tax, you know, saying that you have these past due fees.
So that would be, so at least in my opinion, the reason why I didn't use a specific piece of legislation or specifically address the Florida law is that that's entirely untopical. So that doesn't fall within the legal boundaries of sentencing. That's something that happens, you know, post-release, which means it actually isn't legally tied to sentencing in the criminal justice system.
Okay, I just wonder, you know, because this will come up, I'm just wondering, is there any phrasing that could be included to say, because even though it's not tied to the actual like sentencing, but it's used as a loophole. And so is there any way to say that? Because it's also still based on the sentence, right? It's still based on the fact that you were put in prison.
Yeah, so there's sort of this general assumption in debate that the affirmative gets to sort of clarify what the plan means if there's something that is sort of about what the plan actually means. It's sort of that the affirmative has the right to clarify the intent of the plan. And that would usually come up in 1 and C cross X. But another sort of assumption that comes in with debating policy affirmatives is that any legislation that would conflict with the affirmative is assumed to be struck down or modified so that the plan could be put in place and could be sort of followed in the spirit of the law as well. Circumvention arguments are, you know, they're around on every topic. But again, that's sort of a debate to be had. And yeah, so the affirmative team is going to get to say, like, we shouldn't have to, you know, list every possible loophole for the plan. We should get to argue generally in favor of a policy, the negative might say that state circumvention is important.
Because in fact, it's still disenfranchising the person that was incarcerated, because you're still, you know, they're just getting out of jail. And what if they do not have the means to pay the fee or the fine to then have the right to vote, which in fact was one of their rights to begin with? It's almost like stripping them from.
I don't want to cut anybody off, but I do sort of need to move on to the parts of this that are a little bit more about the strategy for the negative and debating it. You know, this case isn't supposed to be airtight. It's meant to, you know, leave avenues for negative teams to argue it. So if it's all right with people, if we could save other just sort of like questions about whether the plan is effective until a later part of this, I'd love to just move on a little bit just because I'm worried about time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for clarifying.
And I can put my email in the chat after this if that would be helpful for people to talk later. So this is just something that will be made available to coaches. It's suggestions for varsity and JV debaters to research more. I'm going to move past it now just for the sake of time. Same with this, but I'm going to move into negative strategy because it's often very difficult to be the negative against a case that is just sort of making a sort of morally correct argument, right? Like you as a debater or as an arguer, you don't really want to be put in the place of defending inequitable voter disenfranchisement, right? That's not something we want debaters to defend. That's not something that debaters should want to defend, right? And so you sort of need to come up with ways to strategically address the affirmative that don't put you in this place where you're arguing for things that are just kind of unacceptable and that you can't really justify defending. So we're going to go into kind of two sections of how to understand strategy against apps like this. And the first one of those is relying really heavily on off-case positions. So generally against a case like this, you don't really want to be talking about why the affirmative is a bad idea from the perspective of like the idea that voting rights are a bad idea. So you sort of need to bring in these independent issues or other separate consequences that the affirmative might have that they didn't bring up in the 1AC that are reasons why the affirmative maybe shouldn't be put into action. So generally, given that these arguments like harms turns or solvency turns on the case tend not to be very strong, off-case arguments like disadvantages, counterplans, and critiques are where you're going to find the reasons to win the debate. The affirmative is generally going to want to argue for why the act is morally or politically important, you know, just sort of based on the principle that voting rights are important and inequitable disenfranchisement is bad. And so the negative is going to generally want to move the debate away from the case because that's not really a claim that you want to be contesting as the negative. And so when you're sort of thinking about how to set up your negative speeches against this app, you want to be thinking about the story you can tell in the 2NR, right? You sort of want to be thinking about how you can tell a coherent story, really work arguments together to give a solid reason why a different option than the one the affirmative has presented is the right way to go. So one option of this is the state's counterplan and the federalism or electoral credibility disadvantage that I think are in the packet that people probably have seen by now. And you know, that sort of basically says, here is a negative consequence the affirmative has, here's a way we can fix it. That's why we should do something else. And so just sort of thinking about how to set up like a story that you can tell in the 2NR. You have a couple options of those things. There are multiple counterplans. We're including a new counterplan with this case, which is the post-incarceration re-enfranchisement counterplan, which basically says that once people have fully served their sentence and have been released from prison, their right to vote should be reinstated. There are arguments that says that's more politically popular, that it's a little bit more feasible, that it sort of brings up fewer controversial issues, while still, you know, contributing towards better political participation and sort of fixing some of the affirmative's issues. And Roger, I see you looking nervous. I'm seeing the time. I'll
no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. And so I just want to sort of go into an example 2NR. So some of the arguments that the negative might really want to have protected by the time you reach the end of the debate. And so one example of that is—
Let me pause you just for 1 second, Mosey. So just to clarify, just to reiterate one more time, the state's counterplan and the federalism DA will be included in very short versions in the novice packet. We know a lot of coaches also ask us all the time, what about JV? What about varsity? I'm not sure what to teach them. So this is an example of the types of arguments that a JV or a varsity debater might make against this case, because they have access to a little bit more material.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. So, you know, if you're the negative and you're sort of thinking about like, what do I want to be defending at the end of a round, you might come up with something sort of like this. You might really go for the post-incarceration re-enfranchisement counterplan and make the argument that it basically solves the affirmative's harm of political participation by reinstating a significant proportion of the electorate of people of color with the right to vote. So it solves the political participation harm. Then you might also have this disadvantage, one of the couple that are available, about political popularity, right? You can make the argument that the AF is more politically unpopular than the counterplan, and that has impacts of X, Y, and Z, right? Whether it's passing other legislation, whether it's some other political consequence, there are disadvantages that make those arguments that I think everyone has at this point. And then you can make the argument on case, and this is included in the packet, that there are alternate causes for the gerrymandering harm that the affirmative has brought up. Basically, when legislatures draw districts, they don't really care about how ethical it is. They want to make things work to their own advantage. And so they will use inequitable and unethical processes of gerrymandering anyway. And so the plan won't be able to solve those things. And so what you're doing there is you're saying, the affirmative has two harms that they talk about, one of which is solved by the counterplan, the other of which is solved by neither the counterplan or the plan. So it doesn't really count for either side. And then you're also saying this other sort of independent reason why the affirmative is bad, but the counterplan is not. And so, you're sort of telling a story about why your policy option is better than the affirmatives, and sort of covering all your bases there with different sections of the case, bringing in this sort of separate off-case impact, and really defending your own policy option. Here, I do want to stop because that's sort of a lot of, debate language, a little bit more jargon. Are there any questions sort of about that general idea of using off-case positions to weigh against the case instead of debating the principle of the affirmative? All right, those can absolutely keep coming in the chat as we move along. If anyone's still typing one or wants to say one, go ahead. Roger, I just want to check in about time. I think we could absolutely stop here if you want to move on to the next thing. I think that's sort of, yeah, Roger, that's very important. I think the rest is a little bit more self-explanatory. There's a lesson plan about it. So if we need to skip that section, we can, and just move ahead to Roger's activity.
Yeah, so let's do that. And what we're gonna do is Mosey's actually prepared a number of additional slides, which are all fantastic, and will be shared out at the end of the PD, the slideshow. What we encourage you to do is take the larger chunk of slides that gives an overview of, it starts with the basics of the affirmative and the basics of the negative, and then gets into more advanced stuff and different strategies. Take different chunks of that at different practices and teach it to your students when you feel like they're looking for it. And some of it is more aimed at novice debaters. Some of it's more aimed at JV and varsity debaters. So we wanted to give you kind of a full menu of things to choose from, but unfortunately we can't go through them all now. So we're gonna jump into an activity. And let's see, Mosey, I'm going to take over the screen share if that's okay. All right. We're gonna do an activity which we're gonna, let's see.
Roger, while you're pulling that up, can we
Oh,
just give a little appreciation and love for Mosey, both for leading us in this conversation and for writing a very deep and I would say difficult case to write. So thank you, Mosey, for your expertise.
Yes, thank you, Mosey. All right. Okay, now I can share because I know what I want.
And for surfacing this topic, because I think it's a really important one. So thank you, Mosey, for that too.
Agreed.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? It says voting rights lessons. Awesome. Okay. So what are you going to get after this PD? We're going to share out a folder which will have the materials from Lorenis, it will have the materials from Mosey, and it will have 4 lessons on teaching the voting rights case. And it will also have the evidence and an evidence case map. So a bunch of good stuff. And the lessons, we thought about actually doing the first lesson, which was who should get to vote. And I was partial to that one, biased towards it because I put it together. It digs into a cool video on whether or not 16 and 17-year-olds should get to vote and has them then draw parallels and kind of back up and say, like, you know, why do we decide that certain people get to vote and certain people don't get to vote? And then has people then apply that same kind of moral reasoning to people who are or have been incarcerated. So we are not going to do that because we didn't think it would teach you too much about what some of the arguments were. We figured you all would know a lot of the main arguments about why 16 or 17-year-olds maybe should or should not vote. You've probably done that debate with them before. So we're going to actually skip to the third lesson, which is a deep dive into the negative argument and negative strategy. So what you all are going to be doing is putting together 1 NCs. You're going to be putting together first negative constructives together in breakout groups. And so, Rainer, can you share the link for everyone in the chat? What we would like you to do is start by navigating to mybdl.org/matching. And you'll notice that this is from mybdl.org. Rainer put it together. Thank you to Rainer. But also, this is something that your students, it's live now, and you can do with your students in practice. So what we've put together is, let me navigate to that so you can all see it on screen. Can you all still see the voting rights matching activity on screen? Great, okay. So we have a 1AC. This is the 1AC from the packet. The inherency is in yellow, the harms evidence is in orange, and the solvency evidence is in green. And then we have a number of the negative argument taglines. They're mixed up, and there's an extension about offensive and defensive arguments, which we're going to skip for now. But what you're going to do in your breakout groups is you're going to have one person drag any one of the pieces of evidence that you want and put it anywhere you want in your negative 1NC flow. And the reason why we put these extra boxes here is we want you to line up this argument next to what you think it responds to. And if you don't think it necessarily responds to one thing only, just put it next to one thing that you think it might respond to, one place that it fits. And one other thing is, we won't actually do this today, but in your practices, we encourage you to have the debaters give the speech that they create. So what we want you to do is think about this is, I'm not actually trying to select all of the pieces of evidence and put them in my 1NC, because that's not a good thing that's not what we want you teaching your debaters to do. We want you to pick what evidence you think you would be able to read within the time limits of 8 minutes for high school, or 5 minutes for middle school JV, 3 minutes for middle school varsity. So your context is going to be a little different. But what that means is you're probably selecting maybe somewhere between 3 and 5 strong arguments and deciding where they go in the flow. And then we're going to pull you back here and ask you what you picked and why. Okay. So I'm going to send you to breakout groups. But while I'm creating the breakout groups, please navigate to that page and start to read through the affirmative and negative arguments. And actually, everyone's in breakout groups from before, so let's just keep the same groups we already had. I like that. So I'm going to open the rooms now. And again, each group is responsible for having one person come back and let us know which pieces of evidence you picked for your 1NC. All right, so I'll send you to breakout groups, and you have, let's say, 10 minutes for that. So it's 5:36 now. We'll come back at 5:46. All right, here we go. All right, I hope you enjoyed digging into the role of a debater and putting yourself in the debater's shoes there. Would anyone like to present first? That's fair. I would definitely expect that this activity would take longer than 10 minutes with your debaters. So not surprised that it took a while with the bigger breakout groups as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so our group, we were pretty much going through like each argument, saying like, which one do you think best match it, and then kind of debating, because sometimes we have different answers, and which I think, again, coaches, in your practices, I think it's great to just start with that, especially if they don't see the packet yet, because then you can kind of see like which one is the right answer. Because even though we may arrange it a particular way, if your students think of a different way to use that argument towards the AF, that's great. Like, we welcome that. So what was happening where it was taking us time to like debate, like, but does this really go there? I think that is what we want to be happening at your practices, where it's like students are really debating, where should we really put this? And then kind of giving like other responses saying like, no, slow down. Like, maybe we should put this in solvency, which is why we didn't finish the 1NC that we were supposed to do. But yeah.
If I can add one really quick thing, sorry. Some of the negative cards answer arguments that are made in the negative pieces of evidence, but that are not in the taglines. So some of the negative cards are responding to warrants that are in the 1AC, but those aren't necessarily represented in the tagline. So it can make those connections a little difficult, but once you have the evidence, it'll be a little more apparent.
All right, well, in that case, I'll give a 1NC. You all can see me play debater here for a second. And so here we go. I'll put myself in the middle school novice view. Can everyone see my screen here? Okay. So if I were a middle school novice, I might have selected 3 pieces of evidence, and the 1NC I would give would look something like this. This case, Judge, this case doesn't have any inherency. States are already taking action to restore voting rights. The plan is not needed. We also know that states can draw district lines however they want, and that prevents the democracy the affirmative is hoping for. So even if we allow people to vote and get rid of prison gerrymandering, there's still going to be regular gerrymandering, because states can still disproportionately draw lines and silence the voices of people by race disproportionately. That's still going to happen even with this plan. And finally, Maine and Vermont don't have restrictions on voting right now, but they have very low voter participation among eligible voters in prison. So this evidence shows that giving prisoners the right to vote won't ensure that they vote and won't have the impacts that the affirmative is saying that it will. That's my speech. All right, so we're at 5:50. Marisa, I'm gonna turn it over to you now. Do you have the ability to share your screen?
I do, yes.
All right.
Thank you. And Luce, I don't know if you want to close this out. I can share the screen if that would be helpful.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you, Marisa, and thank you everyone who joined us today for coming here. I know the time in Zoom never feels that it's enough. It didn't feel enough for the first part. It didn't feel enough for this activity. And it will never feel that we have enough time to learn everything that we have to for this. But I just want to say thank you everyone for being here and for kind of like spending this time with us. And a couple of the things here that I would love for us to kind of like Marisa, if we can go a quick reminder of a couple of the things for today and the things coming up. So this is what we're going to be doing. Marisa, if you can be sharing the links in the chat, that would be great. So please, we will provide a few minutes for you to complete the exit ticket. Please give us your feedback about how was today's session and how we can continue to improve these PDs and what else is it that you need for these to continue to with this second half of the season. The second thing that we would love for you to do is please remember that January we don't have a tournament, but we cannot say that this is mandatory, but we can highly encourage you to please bring the students to the scrimmage. High school scrimmage is from January 20 to the 22nd, and middle school scrimmage it will be the following week. So if you're a student, it's like, oh my gosh, just been 1 week and not ready, that's why they need to come to the scrimmage. I cannot emphasize this long enough. That doesn't matter how many practice you have. If the students doesn't have the practice of coming to like a scrimmage of doing a round, they always gonna feel that they are not prepared. So please bring them to the scrimmage. And if there is other ways, I still like, you have until tomorrow to let me know, please, whether or not the day that I assign it work for you. I try to put the assignments where your practice was. If that doesn't work, we are trying to be as flexible as possible to please, if you need us to bring judges to and coordinate with other schools in the morning, that is something that we can do. The evidence request, Roger sent that as well, and the link is in the chat. Please request the evidence that you need so that can be delivered. And besides the scrimmage coming up in January, there is also the criminal justice reform on the 23rd. So encourage your students to attend. There will be multiple topics there. Students will continue to learn about criminal justice. And there is also let's talk about Black women kind of like virtual conversation that Phoebe is going to be having. Phoebe, the Brighton High School debater, who have been leading several activists like workshop in November, was doing that. So now she's having like this full event. So encourage the students to come and support her as well and to come and learn a little bit. So I think we already shared all the links in the chat. So please take a few minutes to complete the exit ticket, the scrimmage, and as well as the evidence. Marisa, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. Yeah, and I think just if we can put, today there were 3 outcomes, was strengthening a little bit of like the community with coaches. That's why we started with the activity at the beginning, kind of like just getting to know a little bit more about each other, winter break, sharing a few strategies of debate, engagement, and commitment. These haven't been easier to do this year. It's not any year. It's not easy to do any year, but this year has been a little bit more difficult with everything. So we hope that we can continue to provide some ideas, and that please continue among the coach community. Remember, now you're part of Slack. I'm pretty sure like we can like send messages there. That's also what I've been trying to do, to send a few messages there. If you have any question, any point, reach out. You also were able to see a little bit of like a brief of the case. So I know that was not enough time to learn about the case, but that is, we hope that was helpful, and that kind of like that brief overview. And Marisa, I think we can go back a little bit to the previous one, so we can see everything coming up in a Lorenis style way. So everything that is coming up, and at any point, just please reach out if you have any questions, need any further support. And Roger, I think mentioned it before, we're also gonna be sending 4 lessons. So don't worry about preparing lessons or like how you're gonna teach this topic. There's gonna be 4 lessons ready for you. This activity is going to be shared with you in both English and Spanish, although we're still working on having it released in both, so you will have material to work on. And then just thank you everyone for being here today. And if you haven't given us like what gift card you want, Grow Up or Over Eats, just put that right now in the Excel sheet. I know there's still a few people that haven't like told us what they want, so please do that.
Yes, and let's see, just to answer a couple of the items in the chat here. Yes, there will be a registration link coming for the conference. You'll receive that in the email. Like Luz mentioned, you will receive a folder after this, which will have all the content from this PD, and the PowerPoint that Mosey created and the first lesson for your students are already available both in Spanish as well, and lessons 2, 3, and 4 will be translated into Spanish before you need them. And the activity we did also is in there. The evidence in Spanish will be finished with translation by this weekend, and the case map is already translated as well into Spanish, so you can use the activities for that. And to answer the question about paper copies of the evidence, once you have filled out the form, we're putting in our first batch order to ProPrint tomorrow. So they're very quick on their turnaround. They will probably print, my guess is early next week, and deliver by middle of next week. So I would say you can expect to receive the evidence where you have asked in the form by Wednesday or so, would be my guess. And if you have any additional thoughts or questions, definitely reach out and let us know.
There is another question about the varsity, Roger, if the JV packet can also be used for varsity. So students, varsity students can use any part of the evidence or anything. Even JV debaters, if they want to do a little bit of research on their own, we encourage them to as well to do that. So that's for JV high school students.
Yes, absolutely. And just so coaches are aware, the extra files that are being distributed for high school JV and varsity Spanish and middle school varsity won't have the same level of additional resources and educational materials. They'll be built to respond to this case. So this is the voting rights case is still the base case that you can use at any level, and affirmative and negative can use that. And then the additional materials will be off case arguments for the higher divisions to use. And Helen asked about scrimmage registration. Yes, you're going to be a week later than the high school scrimmages, so we have not sent that out yet, but it will be out next week.
And for anyone who's worried about showing up a little, the scrimmage will start right at 3. There is not going to be any anything pre to that. So it will use as soon as the students arrive, they're going to go into a room to debate. So if your student is showing up at 3:10, then whoever is showing up at that time is going to be then sent to a scrimmage. So the idea is to have like one round quickly, enter in and out with a couple of experienced alone judges. So if the students don't feel prepared, they will have judges that will be able to help guide them a little bit. So this is the least scary part to come and do the round. And it looks like we are at 6 o'clock, but if anybody have any questions, final questions or thoughts.
And a question I have, so for the scrimmage, you're only debating the new case or just a new case? Okay.
Yes, just a new case.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anyone here who's been to a scrimmage already this season, but we will have alumni judging the high school scrimmage who have been through this before. We will have high school students and alumni judging the middle school scrimmage. And the purpose of a scrimmage round is not competitive, right? The goal, we actually don't even usually pick winners and losers in scrimmage rounds. The goal instead is for the judge, who is a more experienced debater, to help walk students through the debate and help both teams as they're learning to make arguments on this case for the first time. So it's really about learning the case in a full debate format rather than, trying to win a round.
And I will say, skip the practice of the week. Just come to the scrimmage. It's 3 days, opportunity for everybody. If one day doesn't work, come to the other one. So that could be your practice of the week.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for coming. We deeply appreciate it and hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you all.
Everyone, take care.
Everyone, nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.